Awesome. Welcome everyone to another Integration Quest MuleSoft study group. Glad to have everybody here today. We got a nice looking size group already live with us here. And I just want to give a warm welcome to Sravan Nerella. He's back with us. He's presented once before already, and he has come back. He's going to be presenting and talking about how custom connectors don't have to be hard. We don't have to overcomplicate it. So glad to have him here today and sharing with us what he has been covering and what he's been doing. So I'm going to go over a couple things, just the MuleSoft or the Integration Quest code of conduct. Everybody's been doing great with this, and we'll just keep that going. I'm happy to see it. Happy to see everybody doing so well. Also glad to see the new subscribers. I was just checking on the YouTube channel. We've got more subscribers. When I first started doing this, there was like 100 something, and now we're at 244. It's like public. I mean, anybody can go see that. I'm just happy to see that. I'm happy to see it growing. I'm happy to see that the stuff that we're doing here, that we're putting out and presenting on, is helping people. I love seeing the comments. So if you haven't already, subscribe and leave a comment if it's helped you. We love helping people, and I'm glad that everybody's getting over there and seeing that there's just such a wealth of knowledge over there on the website, on the YouTube channel. So go check it out if you haven't already. Today, like I said, we have Sravan. He's presenting, and he's going to be sharing with us. I had to actually update this bio. So the last time that we had him on the study group, some things have changed since then. So he is now the MuleSoft meetup leader in Detroit. Last time he was going to be, it was like a prospect. So congratulations on that, Sravan. Awesome. And not only just the MuleSoft meetup leader, he is also a ambassador, MuleSoft ambassador for 2026. So congratulations on that as well. Had to add that into the bio. You know, we've got all this experience, and we've got all these credentials and everything, but it's not just all about that. It's the fact that he's giving back to the community, and we really appreciate that. Go ahead, Ryan. You were saying something.
I wanted to give Sravan a chance to explain what that is. I don't know if everyone on our channel, on the video, or in the study group knows about the ambassador program. Do you want to just explain
that? That is true. I'm going to leave this up because usually I stop presenting and turn it over to Sravan. I'm going to do that shortly. But yeah, Sravan, if you want to explain what that is, just for people that may not know.
Sure. So typically this is ambassador is kind of like happens from the MuleSoft community. It's about like the number of people who are actually giving back to the community and talking about like what MuleSoft is, and as well as like helping other people and mentoring other people. It's all about like talking to the people and then helping them out as much as you can. It could be by giving this one-to-one sessions, or it could be some kind of a blogs, or it could be like some video meets. It doesn't have to be a one medium. It can be like a multiple places. And the more you contribute to the community, we kind of like eventually go into the state of mentorship. And then over the period of time, based off your contributions and everything, you will be picked up for a top MuleSoft mentor. And from there, you apply for an ambassador program. And that's basically like a elite status of the whole, the people who are actually like giving back to the community. I believe Ryan is the first person to be the part of this community as an ambassador. And he could be like giving a much bigger idea about like how this whole ambassadorship works. But from my experience, it seems like it's a long journey. Okay. It's a long journey of meeting a lot of people and then talking to a lot of people, contributing so much to the like community, and then the only thing you get back is basically this ambassadorship role, and this is just basically the start of the whole thing. It's basically like you kind of now have a bigger platform to like talk to people, and then a bigger platform to like communicate and express your ideas and how it can be evolved towards things, and provide practices, and as well as ideas, thoughts. It could be like multiple things. And not only that, you also get to talk with the actual MuleSoft people, and it's a great experience, actually, honestly saying.
I agree. Yeah. That's a great description. Great and great explaining it to people that may not know. I really appreciate you doing that. That is exactly what I was getting at, and in just showing all this, that Sravan, anybody that comes on here and presents, is just willing to give back to the community, and we really appreciate that. We appreciate the learning that we're doing here together. And I'm just going to stop sharing my screen so that way you can start sharing your screen and you can do exactly what we're talking about. So I'll let you take it from here. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Everybody give them a warm welcome. We've already got some welcomes in the chat there and some congratulations. So great work. I'll be watching the chat. If anybody has any questions, as always, pop them in the chat and I'll kind of throw my hand up and pop back up on screen and we'll ask questions as we go like we always do. Okay, everybody?
Sounds great. Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Sravan Nerella, and thank you very much, RJ, Ryan, and everyone for giving me this warm intro. And yes, and the Mules of Mentorship, and as well as now an ambassador, it's like a great position to be in. And I actually want to thank the whole Mules of community and as well as the Integration Quest team uh, for giving me the opportunity to talk about these things. That being said, today let's talk. I know I have been like talking a lot about AI recently, and one of the key things that I kind of ran into was the connectors, custom connectors specifically. So recently, I was working with one of this organization, and they had this a repetitive flow that kept happening across their across their Mule applications. And I've noticed that it's been like, as part of the code review, I've noticed this is like wrong. They could actually make it much better. And when I asked about the team, most of them were really scared about, okay, custom connector, okay, that sounds like a hard progress. I mean, hard thing to do. And that kind of led to like me writing an article about it. That's about like a building custom connectors. And then I realized, okay, maybe giving a session about this thing will actually really help people get exposure towards building these custom connectors are not hard. Especially they are kind of pretty easy right now, especially with the help of AI and everything right now, you know. So that led to that being said, just a quick show of hands if possible, or messages. How many of you have built a custom connector before? All right. Ryan does, yes. No, okay. Tony did, yes, great. Okay, I see two no's. Okay, three, three yeses, two no's. All right, that's fine. I think that gives me a good metric to start about this. So, custom connectors are not. Whenever we talk about custom connectors, a lot of people think it's always built with Java. You know, you have to be getting into the code and then writing out all of these code for like putting together this connector, right? But that's not honestly true. You know, MuleSoft actually recently introduced multiple ways. Not only recently, but it's been there for a very long time, and it has given us like a lot of ways to build these custom connectors for your SaaS platforms or any kind of new things that you're connecting to, you know. So actually I wanted to do a quick introduction. So just a quick introduction. I'm Sravan Nerella. Like I mentioned, I'm an integration architect and a MuleSoft practice lead at K2 Partnering Solutions. And I'm a huge AI enthusiast. And recently I've been a MuleSoft ambassador. I've been top MuleSoft mentor, AI advocate of 2026. Sorry, that was a typo. But and also I'm a MuleSoft meetup leader at Detroit. Okay. So that being said, today's agenda, I'm just going to talk about connectors. We're going to build connectors, and it's going to be a lot of demos. I'm just going to show you like how I'm building a connector and then how I'm using those connectors. That's all. So starting off with what are connectors? Connectors are essentially like a fundamental concept to the whole MuleSoft environment. They are like the building blocks of your integration or the flow or anything like that. So they're designed in a way to be plug and play, meaning like you just drag and drop onto your flow and then basically utilize its functionality or core capability of what it is doing. So typically, if we think this writing in a code perspective, you typically write the same snippet of code multiple times again and again and again, right? So what we typically do is we kind of extract it to a function and then we try to reutilize that. And imagine the similar exact functionality as in APIs and then now as well as for your connectors. Okay. When we are talking about connectors, we're talking about a specific system that we're trying to connect and then basically like what functionality that we're trying to expose part of it. And using these connectors, we typically drastically decrease the number of development times and then basically like make it much more accessible for everyone to use. So these connectors, they can listen to the events, they can create events, they can transform events, and then they can also support configurations to your applications. So we have seen this across everywhere, you know. So one of the key things that we noticed was the event listeners. These are the ones which kind of go into your source part of your source part of your flow, and then the event creators and the transformer go into your like the secondary part of your flow, the operations. And that leads to the next thing, the types of connectors that we have like a protocol connectors. Those are like your HTTP connectors or your SFTP connectors or your SMTP or anything like those things. JMS, all of these queues, those are all related to the protocol connectors. The next one is the SaaS connectors. These are related to like your external SaaS systems, Workday, Salesforce, or it could be like NetSuite. It could be anything, And then there is the database ones. That's pretty straightforward, like what kind of database that you're trying to connect and what kind of support that you're trying to bring with it. The next one is we are talking about is the utility connectors. These are very specific to like file, email, secure properties or OAuth properties. These are helping you in building your configurations to your applications. And there is also one more thing that is something that we can build. That's called the flow control connectors. In our Mule application within our palette, we get to see something like a choice, scatter gather, and all of these things, right? In a similar way, you can also build something like a flow control connectors like fallback. Maybe that's basically like that's a custom connector that you might have to build. I'm going to show you what that all of these things mean. Excuse me. That being said, all of these connectors, all the connectors, MuleSoft by default provides all of these connectors within our exchange, and within our organizations, we can also build these connectors and then make them available part of our exchange. So writing these connectors, they kind of help us like build applications faster and move towards like a deployments very fast. So that being said, how do we build these connectors? There are 4 different ways of building them. The first one is the REST Connect way. The second one is XML SDK. Third one is Mule SDK, and fourth one is the connector builder. This is the latest development for the whole thing. So today, what I will do is I'll give you a quick demo of each one of them and how we can actually build an connector for each one of them, and see how we can actually like get these connectors up and going very fast. So first of all, let me start off with a very simple one, REST Connect. REST Connect is basically like it's part of your Anypoint Exchange. All you have to do for a REST Connect to work, it's pretty simple as writing an API spec and publishing it to an exchange. And that's it. Your Anypoint Exchange takes this API specification and automatically yeah, yes, like Ryan said, it is the unsung hero of the Anypoint, yes. Um, it kind of like takes the API specification and then basically publishes into your exchange, and it kind of the REST Connect will automatically identify your operations that are available, and then whatever the operations that are available, it will convert them into like a connector, one connector with all the operations that are available. So in order to see this in action, what I will do is I'm going to go into Anypoint platform. And in here, what I'm going to do is typically I'm going to pick some kind of a connector that does not exist. So in Anypoint Exchange, we don't have something like an Anthropic connector. So we already have ChatGPT, but not the Anthropic. So what I'm planning on doing is I'm going to write a small API specification. So I'm going to go into the design center. I have done something that's very simple as write out a small API specification for Anthropic. One second, let me open that up. So this is a pretty straightforward API specification. All I did was like just define the servers and then the security mechanism and the paths that I want to expose. In this case, basically what I've done is I've taken just v1 of the messages endpoint. So just if you want to see like how this actually works, what I have done is I went into the Anthropic API, and then basically like I was just checking the API docs. One second. Sorry, API reference. And then basically it has like all the details of what I need in here. So what I've done next is I went into ChatGPT and I just said like, you know what, help me generate an OAS for Anthropic API. Just in case, open API specification for Anthropic API. So Open API actually like when we're talking about it kind of generates 3.1. For our application, I have to pick 3.0. I'm going to stop it up here. I'm just going to say, just in case, I'm just going to say Open API specification 3.0 and just give me create message endpoint. And all I have done is just whatever the API specification it generated, I just copied it and pasted it within our API specification up here. Once I have done it, all I have is like an API spec with a documentation created, and you can see it's just a post endpoint. You can see like all the details that are available in here, you know. So once that's available, I have just defined like the API specification, and ChatGPT helped me generate that request payload and as well as the response payload. And that's all. I just click on publish. Once I do that, inside the exchange, what happens is we have an API specification available within our API specification available part of our exchange. That's it, simple, right? So here's the good part. Anypoint Exchange, what it does is whenever this API specification gets published, it automatically generates a REST connector in the background. So in order to access this, all you have to do is just click on download and you will see the Mule4 connectors in there. And that's it, you start using it. That's one way of doing it. The other way is it's as simple as going into your Anypoint Studio, and then I'm just going to open the REST Connect. And then you can just click on like add modules. Sorry, search in Exchange. This got it. I don't think this will let me, but let's see. Okay, that's fine. I have to connect to my account. I have some issue with the adding an account in this, but let me just try once last time. Okay. So what I typically do is if that doesn't work for me, all I do is like I just come down here. I provide the dependency of my application, just the group ID, artifact as like mule plugin hyphen the application name that you have published, and the version of it, and then it is a mule plugin. Once I do that, basically what happens is on your left-hand side, you will see the Anthropic API that's been available, and you can see the Create API. The good part of this REST Connect is it kind of provides out-of-the-box functionalities for a lot of things. Like, for example, once you drag and drop your connector, you can actually create your configurations up here. Everything's available for you. Meaning like you can configure your host, port, base path, protocols, response times, and then the API key as well. And all of these details are actually defined on your API spec. So if you were to go back to you up here, and you will see the security has been set up here as the API key and the headers that are required as this. And all the details, whatever you have provided, they are actually converted into like a global configurations and as well as the operation up here. So once I drag and drop your create message up here, it will ask you to provide your configuration and then basically like, what is the request that you're trying to send? And you can actually click on like this, the data weaver option, and then basically you can see like the metadata automatically populated for you. So that's as simple as like just building an API connector, right? And if you're wondering if this works, yes, it does. All you have to do is just generate a payload and then basically like trigger it, and you will see this particular API working. What I can do is, one second. Let me see if I can just debug this for a second. So just to debug anything, I typically what I do is I just create a small scheduler, and then basically I just click on this button to like produce an event, and then it will take care of creating that message. So up here, I'm just going to I'm going to generate the payload and then basically go into the create message. I'm going to hit the endpoint. Oopsie, bad request. I think I missed something in there. Okay, let me stop that. But essentially what's happening is, as you can see there, it's actually making an API call up here to this particular endpoint, and then basically getting a response and sending it back to you as a response. That's all. And that being said, let me just jump back to my presentation. All right. So that's how easy basically like you can actually build out a custom connector just using the REST connector. That's simple. So what are the key advantages of using a REST connector? It's very simple. It's very fast. And then basically all you need to do is just provide an API specification and you're done. And here's the thing. The API specification doesn't have to be in OAS. You can actually write it in RAML and it still works. So all you have to do is just provide an API spec and you're good to use. And here's the best part. There is no development in here. And then basically it's published directly into your Anypoint Exchange. So it's basically like reused from the start. So that being said, the biggest cons for this whole thing is basically there is no customization whatsoever. Meaning like if I want to like say like, hey, you know what, whatever the response the application is sending or the Anthropic API is sending, I want to like contain like what details needs to be sent out or details as such. I cannot control them. It's just whatever the details that you send, it's basically whatever the details that you get. That's it. And technically, all this HTTP requests and everything that you're seeing right now, it acts as like something called a HTTP proxy, meaning like it's not really doing anything in there. Whatever the request that you're doing, it's acting like a proxy to send the request to the actual server and get the response back. And that's all. And if you want to add any kind of advanced features like paginations or anything like that, I'm sorry, this is not the right way to do it. Okay. Any questions on that? Let me give you a quick pause up here.
Yeah, yeah, I can kind of summarize. There's a lot has been going on in the chat. Some people, especially veterans, especially the veteran who I was chatting with in the chat, like a lot of experienced MuleSoft people decide not to use REST Connect on purpose and just go with the plain old HTTP connector. You want to address that anyway, and just what the pros and not that it's better or worse, but just what the decision matrix might look like.
Sure. I kind of understand that because that's one of the things that I do as part of my applications too. So one of the things is basically whenever we are building with this REST Connect, you're kind of logged into that particular connector and that particular features that it's providing. For example, let's say that I want to hit a different endpoint all of a sudden, or if I want to change something, I have to change the connector altogether. Instead, HTTP connector kind of helps me to like make it dynamic. Meaning like right now I'm connecting to one of the endpoints, and in the future, let's say that I don't want to use this one, but I want to use a different endpoint altogether. It's much easier to configure those things, you know. And again, I'm not just talking about an endpoint here. I'm talking about a service particularly. Okay, that's one of the reasons that I kind of use it for. And not only that, you can also have like some custom configurations that you can actually set it up, and then basically it's much more easier to use. That's what my main take on that is.
Yeah.
But yeah, feel free to add that.
I guess the only other thing for large teams is if you have a lot of APIs and a lot of people, if you don't use REST Connect, you don't get the benefit of any point. Like I would like to go add my such and such API to my project. You can just browse and add it, right? So
Yes.
and you get a version dependency in your POM on that exact API. So I think at scale, I prefer to. There's more reasons I prefer to use REST Connect anyway, even if it's something I could simply use HTTP for, just because I can leave the code behind with a version dependency in it. And so when the next guy comes in, oh, this thing uses 1.6.3 of my whatever API. It seems like it's a nice durable code longevity type of a benefit.
True. Out of curiosity, Ryan, so when we're talking about like larger teams, and you mentioned that you want to use the REST Connect, have you ever run into situations where people, when they wanted to change service, you had to literally like change the connector and then basically maintain the versions, everything? Didn't that cause an issue for you?
I like that. No, the version dependencies between jar files, this is 25 years old. Maven teams argued about this for years. Having a binary version dependency on something in Java is just like having a REST Connect dependency on an API in REST, right? It makes the upgrade for a client be able to happen at a different time than the upgrade for the server, right? And so you don't have to force the client to upgrade. As long as your upgrades are backwards compatible, they can keep using the old version of the connector as long as they want, right? It's only with major version updates, and honestly, we should be treating major version updates with all of that fanfare anyway, because they're disruptive, right? So, I think if you commit to a discipline of using version dependencies for your downstream stuff, whether it's Java or whether it's REST, that forces you to treat your dependency updates with care and not break people. You know what I mean? And then they can keep using the old one until they're ready to go test with the new version. That's my opinion about it.
Well, that's a very valid way of looking at it, actually, Ryan. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Okay. What sort of metadata do you like to get it from? Error related configurations, perhaps, or data types? Well, these are the data types that you define part of your API specification. So based on whatever your API spec is, your API endpoint is written, that's all you're using at this moment. If you were to define your API spec according to the API service that's written, I think the connector is kind of pretty much doing everything by itself. So you don't have to do anything in there. So it's kind of like giving you the most of the functionalities, the metadata configurations and everything automatically. You know, that's request nice. Right. Where you cool. All right. Would it be okay if I jump on to the next section?
Go for it. Looking
All
great.
right. All right. Good. All right. That being said, the next big one, the XML SDK. Here's the thing: a lot of people don't even know about this, but here's the most fun of the whole thing. The XML SDK. This is the second easiest, second easiest way of building your custom connectors. It's very, very simple. The idea is like just provide what you want to do or design it as part of your Mule application as a flow, and then basically provide it as an SDK for your application. That's all. So the way you do it is very, very simple as this. Let me just go back and let me pull up my notes. And let me just get one of the archetype and go into your terminal. 1 second, sorry. I apologize if I'm opening way too many things, but I'm not really. Okay, so I'm going to go into custom connectors, and then basically all I'm going to do is just right click, paste this connector. So all we are doing is basically use this something called a Maven archetype that MuleSoft has provided, and just press enter. And all it does is it provides in the whole archetype of what you need to do. I mean, the structure of your whole Mule application connector. Click on yes, and then basically all it does is it creates this Hello Mule extension application. Once I open this, the application configuration is as simple as just going into your src main module hello.xml, and all you see is XML. That's all. Nothing more, nothing less, just the XML. So how do we build out a connector? It's very simple as just defining what your operations are and what you're trying to do as part of the body. And if you have an output that you have defined in it, just mention there is an output. That's all. These are the three main operations that you will be using to build out your custom connectors. So one of the key things that I like to do as part of any kind of a Catalyst launch or any kind of new client onboarding is basically like build out something like a common utils. So at any point of time, some things like one of the common things that a lot of people do is logging. Everyone has a logging strategy towards it. Initially, we used to use something like a JSON logger, but once we had like a Java 17 upgrade, a lot of times this JSON connector didn't actually help. So what I did was like, instead of doing that, I built out a custom connector for each one of them, saying that, hey, all of these are going to be the same. Just all you have to do is just mention like what operations that you need, and then we're just going to do it. So for example, all I'm going to do is, let's say that there is a flow, something like this, or a subflow. And let's say that I'm writing some kind of a JSON log, something which mentions like, hey, here is my source. And then basically here's my timestamp. And here's my payload. And then basically I can go further down by adding like other attributes like attributes or some other details as you seem fit. All of the details you kind of like write on all of them. Most of the time what happens is the source, whatever you're saying, it's your actual application name. So it's always app.name. The timestamp, it's always like now. But the payload is the only thing that typically changes, like what kind of log that you're trying to do. Or if there is like an error type, like if is this an info log or a debug log, or is it like something like that, And then the attributes, it kind of like if you're trying to exposing these details, just mention attributes and you're fine with it. But if I were to log this information, every time what I will have to do is just do these two components again and again, multiple times. Instead, what I do is I kind of created something called an XML SDK for this one. Using the XML SDK, I built out something like a utility smart connector. In here, all I have to do is two connectors, that is like a log entry and log exit. When I drag and drop the log entry, all it does is one thing. 1 second, let me go up here. So it is pre-filled by all the details, like what is the log level that you want to set up, what's the message, what's the domain name or the source, the log type that you are trying to do, and the source where the information is coming, and the correlation ID details. That's all. So now whenever I'm dragging and dropping this connector every single time, these details are already pre-filled. So if I want to change something, all I just have to do is just change that particular attribute and I'm done with it. So how do I actually build this whole thing? So let's go back up here and let's see these two components right now. Now I have defined these two details. To convert these into some kind of an operation within my Mule XML SDK, all I have to do is just go into the configuration XML, scroll down, and then basically you will see this whole XML data that you have generated up here, right? Copy them, go to your connector, define your operation name, just say like something like log entry, and then just define some kind of a description saying like what it actually does. So log entry. And then basically within the body, just paste, copy the details that you have generated up here and paste it up here. And technically you're done. That's it. You have built out your operation. And then basically like once you make a Maven build out of it, you have your operation created for you automatically. That's all. So, and you can actually define like multiple operations like this. And then basically like you can just have a connector, something like a XML connector that I built like this. All right. So I can show you the quick, instead of this one, let me just open the actual connector that I've built. And this is the common K2 utility that I've built. So if I go into the source, oh my God, 1 second. All right. So up here, it's basically like I have like a utility.xml file. And in here, I've defined my configuration by default. And if I want to like default, if I have a specific key that I want to use, I can just pass it through some kind of a environment variable like here. And then that gets overridden. If that details are not provided, I have provided a default key for it. The next one is the operation. And inside each of the operation, notice that I've mentioned like what's my log entry. I mean, what's the operation name, followed by the parameters. Whatever the parameters that you have seen as part of this particular data set, I've defined them as parameters, saying that, hey, this is the details that you can actually provide, you know. And then there is something called the log type up here, log level type. And that's something like a JSON schema that I've defined up here, mentioning like what is it, what are the possible values. So if it's an enum, just provide the details and you should be good to go. And once you're done with it, just go ahead and mention like what's like optional, what's versus what's required. And all the details will be provided up here. And then there is the body. Notice the transform message that I was mentioning earlier. Notice this is the transform key. That's the transform one. And then basically this is my logger. And that's all. And that's my operation for the whole thing. Once the whole thing is done, I mentioned that there is an output of a string. But in this case, I'm not really writing anything. So you can just see that that's an output. That's all. And you have defined your operation. And you can do the same exact thing for the log exit. Like I see, it's kind of very similar. And just to show you like what else it could do, I've also created the Ask Anthropic LLM. So this is basically like a static connector that I've built. All it does is basically like whatever the connector that I've built earlier, the REST Connect API, REST Connect Anthropic API connector, I've taken that and I've provided it as part of like the parameters. So what that really happens is instead of the user going in configuring all the details, all they have to do is just provide what's the question and let your LLM answer to that. So it acts like a chatbot. So you're kind of like decreasing the complexity of the number of configurations that you have to do and things like that. So that's one of the examples of XML connectors. That being said, let's do a quick analysis of it.
There is a question. I don't know if I was trying to catch you at a good time. It's always hard to catch when you're on a good roll. And so there was a question. I'll read it real quick so that way anybody listening that can't see the chat can hear it. It's Whitney. She's asking, so you toggle between Anypoint Studio and Code Builder. Do you find it easier to build connector in one editor versus the other?
Good question. I kind of feel Anypoint Code Builder is much easier to build with this for the XML connector specifically. The reason for that is because it's very accessible. It's just like I can just drag and drop the connectors, and then basically I can see the the XML right away. Just copy it and paste it, move it around. And there is no, I mean, you can do it either way. You can use the Studio or the Code Builder. It's just your preference. And using one over the other does not really make any difference, honestly saying. So does it answer your question, Whitney?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Thanks. All right. Any other questions, RJ?
I'm not seeing any. There's other conversation going on in the chat, and I believe Ryan and Tony are just kind of getting some stuff worked out that they're brainstorming, so it's looking good. But as far as questions directly to you, everything's looking good. You carry on. Thank you for answering that.
No problem. All right. So let's do a quick analysis of what really happened towards the XML SDK. See, the idea of XML SDK is like whatever the mule flows that you're building, you're just abstracting that whole logic and then making it into a much, much easier way of like reusing these connectors or reusing the functionality multiple times. So the pros is basically like you're doing this as a faster development because you are not really doing much. It's just a drag and drop interface. Just copy that XML and then provide it part of your XML SDK Maven project, and you're done. The next thing is it's like very clean abstraction of what you really want to do, and you can perform all the operations that you need. Then the next thing is it's very customizable, meaning like everything that you can do as part of your mule flows, you can actually like provide it part of your XML SDK, and you can customize it the way you need it. One of the biggest cons of this XML SDK is there is no event source. Okay, so meaning like any kind of listening events that you want to perform, the XML SDK cannot do that. And the second thing is operational limits. It's basically like performance. It's kind of like depends on like how complex your flow is. Let's say that I kind of put some kind of very complex flow design and I want it to be reused. Now your connector performance depends on that complexity that you have defined in it. And it kind of goes slow and then fast based on however it is actually working. And then it relies heavily on mule flows. So anything that you can do on mule flows, that's all you can do. Anything more than that, sorry, the XML SDK does not let you do that. And that means you can do something like a try-catch scopes within your connectors if you want. You can do error mapping in as part of your XML SDK. These are all as part of your mule flows. But if you want to do something like I want to listen to the events and then basically send it back and things like that, those are not XML SDK's strong points at this case. Any questions? Excuse me. Yes, please.
Not seeing any.
Oh, let me open the chat actually. 1 second.
I don't want you to get too confused. So, like I was saying, it looks like Ryan and Tony are brainstorming and getting some things sorted out. So I didn't want you to feel like you needed to be answering that. They're kind of going back and forth on some stuff.
All right.
And just getting some things sorted out.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, it was mentioned to please do all 4 connector types. And I told them that you have totally got that taken care of and planned out. So looking good.
Yep.
We had a special request and the request is going to be granted. Good work.
All right. So here comes the third one. This is the bit complex one, but the most feared one as well. This is the one which is the Mule SDK. If you're a Java expert, this is the best you can actually get. This is kind of built, you're kind of building your connector on top of your Mule SDK, and sorry, you're building on top of your Mule runtime, and basically like it acts as like an extension. And if you're a Java expert, you can build the best performing connector as much as you can. That's the beauty of this Mule SDK. What I'm going to do today is I'm just going to show you like how we can actually build this Mule SDK one too. I'm not going to go in deep because it will start bringing up a lot of questions. So on a very high level, all I'm going to do is I'm going to show you something I built called the fallback connector. 1 second, let me just go back. Custom connectors. So the idea of a fallback connector is very, very simple. So in our organization, we had this idea. So let's say that we are kind of like hitting our service and one of the services down. And we want to use a secondary service or a second, instead of hitting the first service multiple times, I wanted to go into the fallback or the fallback operation, what it needs to do, fallback service that it needs to hit. So it acts like a kind of like a disaster recovery kind of a thing while the primary application is still up and running, So what we have done is in here, we have defined it as two separate flows. Flow number one, what it does is it kind of everything's work, it goes in the best route possible and everything's looking good. Let's say that there is a failure. All it does is basically we have something like a circuit breaker kind of configured in it. It kind of trips the connection and then basically moves all the requests to the fallback route. So that's all it does. And in order to do this, basically what we have done is within our SRC main project, sorry, in the fallback connector project, I've entered to the internal. I've defined a circuit breaker connection up here. And then basically the fallback configuration, what we need to provide, and then basically the operations that we want to perform. And inside this fallback, we have like two routes that we have defined. That is like a fallback flow and the main flow. Based on like where the connectors are configured, when to use which one is configured as part of our fallback operations. And we have some utilities that we have defined up here, and as well as some just bare minimum placeholder skeletons on the top. Okay. In here, all we have doing is basically defining my extension, fallback, and then basically who's the vendor. Configuration towards like which one I have to pick for the configurations, Java supported from Java 17, something like this. And rest of the details kind of like goes based on like your configuration and everything like that. And the best part about the Mule SDK is if you're building a connector on top of some kind of SaaS platform, and they have an SDK, you can just if they have like Java SDK that's provided, just add that as a dependency, and you can start writing your code accordingly. And it's pretty straightforward, you know. That being said, I can also see if I can show it to you in here. Oh, I forgot to show you like how I generated this project. So basically, we also have like another Java Maven archetype that MuleSoft has provided. All you have to do is just go back and then just provide the connector. Sorry, the Maven archetype details. And inside here, oopsie. All right, coming back up here, all you have to do is once you click your archetype, you have to provide your artifact name. For example, this is something I've built it as fallback, so I just mentioned as fallback connector. And then basically the extension to the group ID, I kind of mentioned like, you know what, let me just put something like this. And the artifact ID, fallback test. And then the version, leave it as default and default. And basically it goes ahead and it will start generating the Maven project for you. And from here, it's your, Java expertise that you can actually utilize to build the whole thing. The other way we can also do is, this is something I really love to do as well. I kind of build out my project first, and then basically I open the AI, and then I will start describing what my idea is, and then let AI kind of build out the whole connector for me. So that's another way of building this custom connector. Once you're done with it, the next thing that you have to do is you have to publish this connector manually into your Anypoint Exchange. In order to do this, basically all you have to do is just go back to your project. Let's say that I'm going into the fallback connector, and I will just do mv and clean install first. That will actually download all the necessary dependencies part of my project. My bad. You know what? Demos are not working for me today.
Whenever you find a good time, I've got another question in the chat, but you just let me know whenever you're ready to take it.
Yeah, no worries. Let's take it. You know, let's. Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you a chance to work on that maybe. So Senyong is asking in the chat, he is asking, what is the preferred approach for implementing rollback, such as database or transaction rollback inside a custom connector versus outside it?
Well, we can do it in MuleSoft by default already provides this rollback strategies for your database connections and everything. I would highly recommend to utilize that as much as you can. If you're building a custom connector, if again weighing like what's your pros and cons for the most of the time, and let's say that I'm kind of like using this operation and something fails. Do you want the Mule application to have that flexibility to how to roll back that information or when to roll back it, or let your custom connector kind of handle that logic despite what the application needs are? It's always like you need to like weigh in like what's really needed. I hope that answers your question, Kim. Yep.
Looks like it did. Great work. Thank you.
No problem. All right. I'm really sorry. This is not really the. This is supposed to work. Let me just try it once more again. If it doesn't work, it's okay. I'll just move forward. Oh, I remember. I didn't write my test cases. Sorry.
Francis, link in the chat. He's
Oh
assuming.
my gosh, what a moment that is, Sravan. So first of all, that happens to me on every connector. Every time. Second of all, it's great that the connector requires tests, and I always feel guilty when I do what you just did. So nobody learning this should plan on skipping tests when they do their own connector. But the tests for Mule SDK are extremely difficult and not going to be able to be written in this demo. So we have to skip them right now. But
True.
that is so common when you build Mule SDK connectors.
Yes. The thing is, I kind of made a fork of this connector before the development, and then basically I removed the test cases for the demo purposes only. So this one does not have any test cases. But what you're saying is very true, Ryan. I typically do that too, but I eventually add them back later in the project. All right. So once I'm done with it, all I do is just something called mvn clean deploy with the skipping the test cases. So doing so, what it will do is it will just take the connector, what you have built, and then basically publishes as part of your exchange. So let me go back up here. Let's give it a second, and we should see that. You know what? This is not really supporting today. Let me just do one last time, and I will just skip it for now.
Yeah, it gave you a 401 pushing to exchange, so it's your settings XML authentication. So
no, the thing is, I keep changing my configuration, so maybe that.
Okay,
yeah, okay, that's fine. But essentially, what it does is basically it will publish the asset into your exchange, and then basically it's just downloading the connector from your searching in exchange, and basically adding them part of your project, and you're done with it. So that being said, let me just go back to my presentation. And here's the thing. The biggest advantage of Mule SDK is its advanced development, meaning you have all the capabilities that you need, if you're a very good Java developer, or if you have our programming skills, you have very good programming skills. This is the best thing that could happen for you. You can just build anything as you want. For example, the fallback connector that I was mentioning, it's not something that's available part of our Mule palette, and it's something that a lot of people might use it, and that's not something that we can build with a REST connect because it acts like a HTTP connector. And the second one is the XML SDK. This is not something that I can build with as Mule flows. Hence, the Mule SDK will shine up here. And here's the thing. Since it's kind of giving you the full access to the Mule runtime, and you can actually extend part of it, you can support everything: event sources, paging, streaming, batching, authentications, retry mechanisms, everything. You have everything and all kinds of control as part of this one. And you can always performance tune it towards the highest performance possible as you need it. The biggest con with this Mule SDK is it is very slow in development. And especially when you're kind of connecting to APIs and you're kind of just acting them like a proxy, the Mule SDK is most of the time, it's basically an overkill for a lot of these APIs. But other than that, Mule SDK is like a go-to option for a lot of things,
Wait, can I object? I want to object, Your Honor.
Go ahead, please.
It's slow. It is slow in development when you're new.
True.
After you build 3 or 4 of them, it's not slow anymore. Then you get fast. So it becomes a lot easier with experience. If it's something you're going to do all the time. I do think most Mule developers are not going to build connectors all the time. So it won't. You're never going to get it'll take you 8 years to do 4 of them. But some of I got involved in open source, and so I ended up making more of them. And now for me, it's just as fast as the XML SDK. Because it's kind of like you get used to it,
So my take on this one is basically the iteration cycle. That's the biggest problem with the Mule SDK. So taking something like an XML SDK, it's just like you just drag and drop the ideas, and then basically it's done, you know. But when it comes to like a Mule SDK, you need to like compile the whole thing and then make sure that it's published, and then you have to redo the whole thing. The iteration cycle for each one of these is kind of very slow,
Agreed.
and hence I kind of mentioned it as slower development. That's all. But what you mentioned is true. Even with your sometimes with a lot of experience, sometimes this iteration cycle keeps going in a loop multiple times. So that's the idea behind it. Okay. But what you said is very true, Ryan. Yeah. All right. Any questions?
No questions. I was going to cover earlier. Francis shared a link in the chat, and I'm going to put it in the YouTube description for people watching later. But he thinks that he found the fallback connector. Just check on that a little bit later and make sure the link to it. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. That's it. I've got it. All right.
I really kind of define all of these things like as much as I can. If I'm building a custom connector and it helps someone, feel free to use it, you know. And I kind of define like how the whole flow looks in the beginning and how the whole flow looks right now. And it's much.
You're already getting thanks in the chat, so thanking you for sharing that. So awesome. Good deal. All right, making sure I got it.
All right. Okay, we only have like a few more minutes left. So let me just jump through the next big one, the latest one, which is the connector builder. This is the latest iteration of connector builder, connector building experience with AI that MuleSoft has introduced. And this is very, very simple, honestly saying, and as well as a bit complex based on how you want to see it. The way you actually build out this connector is very simple, as just going into your Anypoint code builder. So I'll just click on a new window for the time being. And all you have to do is click on your extensions and then go into your connector builder.
Sravan, sorry to interrupt again, buddy. So no rush. You don't have to meet the 60 minutes. We can go over. Sometimes people go hour and a half, whatever. I just wanted to say, don't feel like you have to rush through this, because this is like the moment everybody's been waiting for. Okay.
No worries.
So as long as you're good, as long as you have time, feel free to take the time that you need. Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you for saying that, actually.
Yeah. I didn't want you to feel rushed. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. One second. Thank you for saying that out, Ajay. Okay. Let me go back and let me just enable my connection extensions. So this is two things that you have to do. The first one is basically like have your Anypoint code builder ready. The second thing is your connector builder. Search in your extensions and type in something called connector builder. And you will find connector builder up here, the first one. And just click on install, and you will have this icon on your left-hand side on your sidebar. Click on this. And here how things goes up from here on. It's very simple as clicking on new project. And then here, the first thing that you will do is provide your name of your application. So for example, I'm working on Anthropic. I'm just going to say Anthropic. And what the connector needs to do is basically like Anthropic AI connector helps you connect and work with Anthropic's LLM. Claude LLM. And then basically done. And the next thing is you have to provide your project icon. I already have one of the icons in my downloads, if I'm not wrong. I'll just provide my SVG icon, and it will automatically size the icon for you. And you can see the Anypoint platform and availability up here. And here's the cool part. It is also enabled for Salesforce Flow. For the time being, I kind of disabled it, but all you have to do is just select like which ones you want to publish this connector for. Once you click on it and click on next, you have to provide your API specification. And why do we need this API specification? It's because in the background, it uses something called link weave. This is a new thing that MuleSoft has introduced, part of the connector builder. It enables you to like talk to like it enables you to like build out this whole functionality in data weave script. Okay. All you have to do is for this one, what I have done is I can click on this one and then basically like provide the ramlet specification. Or the second way is basically like click on generate with AI. And I don't have an API specification, let's say. I will just say like what API that I want to work with. I'm just going to say Anthropic. And what are my top use cases that I want to perform? I'm just going to say like create message, send file batches. And I can just keep on going and defining each one of them. And once you have the details, all you have to do is just go into the API specification overview, copy that details, paste it as part of your link API specification, and then define your project location. Click on this project location, and I like to keep it on my desktop for the time being, so I'll just do it. And where was my connector builder? Yep. And I'll just click on the connector builder for location, click on select project, and then click on something called copy prompt. Here's the interesting thing. I'm going to copy this whole prompt and then double click on it, paste it up here. So this is the prompt that you will be actually providing to your AI. All you have to do is just open your APIs, your chat, paste it up here, and then basically click on run. And what it does is basically the AI will go in the background, and then basically it will start fetching all the operations that it needs to perform. And everything that you have provided part of your description, it will identify them and its API specification, location, API details, operations, and everything. Once the whole thing is done, I'm not going to run it for now, but I'm just going to show you what it kind of generates. So it will generate a project. So let me just go. Just drop up custom connectors, connector builder. And you see the discovery up here. It will generate this project up here like this. And in here, it will have like a discovery.json. This will tell you like what are the details that you have provided and what it actually identified as part of the whole thing. And it tracks part of the discovered endpoints, mentioning create message and what's the endpoint details like. And then basically like create message patches, and then basically what its payload like, and everything, all the details as I mentioned. And once the whole thing is done, it will automatically generate this API specification, which looks like this. And here's the best part. It will automatically create your data types. It will automatically create your components, headers, schemas, everything. And as well as your endpoints that you mentioned up here. Okay. Once the whole thing is defined, the next thing what will happen is, I'll close this. I'll go back to my code editor. There is something called view or edit project. I can click on that. I can mention like whether it's a new connector or an open existing folder. Since I've already, one second, let me just go back to the new project for the time being. Entropy. And something. I'm just gonna select. Let me just go back for a second. Sorry, I should have done this. I'm going to click on the API specification, and I'm going to provide the specification. Once you do that, basically what would happen is it will ask you to provide all your other endpoints that you want to expose. So once you click on select all, basically all of them will be selected. And the next thing that you will be defining is basically what is the messages endpoint called, or the operation name called. So something like, let's say this is like create message. I'm just going to put like this. The next one is basically like messages. So I'm just going to say create message patches. The next one is retrieve message patches. One of the key things that I would like to point out, it has to be in camel case. If you're providing in any other format, you will run into some issues towards how it's actually like, generating the connector, and you will have to manually go through each single operation and update each one of them. Okay. So just a quick heads up on that. So create files, something like this. And get models. And then basically once you're done with that, click on next, and then basically it will say like where you want to create your connector, and then you'll select the location, and it will automatically create the whole project for you. Okay. For the time being, I'm just clicking on cancel, and I'm just going to click on generate. That kind of creates the project for us. Since I already generated the project for you, I'm just going to show you open existing project. Click on the connector that it's generated. Click on open. Now, this connector actually happens in two ways. Two things that you have to understand. One is something called the model. The second one is basically like the actual actual functionality mapping to it, or the actual functionality map. Actual functionality, how it actually maps to the model. Okay. So this is basically like the connector builder editor, and this is how it actually looks. You can define your pagination attributes, and then you can actually see like what are the operations that are available. And for each one of them, you can actually see like two things going on. One is anypoint o underscore v1 underscore files post. The second one is basically like v1 underscore files post. The difference is if you click on both of them, you don't see big difference. But the idea is it's kind of like have like two things that's going on up here. The one is basically like doing a connector model, and inside the model we actually have the operations and basically like the actual file names. And each one of this is kind of defining what is like the header, and as well as what is the body that you're defining part of it. And all of these details, instead of you providing it, the connector builder will automatically fetch from the API spec and then basically generate it part of it. And as you can see, this is all data view. Right. So that's basically like how the whole the operations kind of look for each one of them. You can see this is basically like for query parameters, I don't have anything that's defined. So basically it's kind of saying like where that actually needs to map to and other details like that. And most of these details, they're actually coming from like a link view. That's basically like all the operations that you're actually defining and everything, they kind of are automatically generated in the background. So you can actually see all of these details where they're actually being fetched and all the details that are being generated. And most of these are coming from something like a code gen, so automatically generated for you. And one second. Once you're done with it, this model will actually contain like what's your actual metadata of your actual application, like what's the connector name, what's its display name, version, pilot status, and other details, like what is the icon that you have provided, and all the details. And here's the thing, next one. This is the connectivity model, and this is where you have your actual API specification that's defined. And then basically, if you were to go into SRC main resources, sorry, SRC DWL.com, this one, you can actually see the connection that's been defined. So in here, you can see that the defined key HTTP connector that is defined for you. And then basically, what is the schema that you need to use, and what is the base URI, and where is this details are being added, and all the details like that. And within your operations, you can actually see like the key elements, like, what is the data that you're sending, like query parameters, and what is the retrieval of headers, cookie, and the generation of response, and all the details. Based of these details, it will make a API call in the background and then basically retrieves the response for you. And if there is any kind of failure, it will use this unexpected failure as a functionality to actually derivative function to actually like handle that response, like sending what kind of status code needs to send out, and what kind of category that you want to configure, and other details. So that being said, and the next one is the types, and what kind of types that are coming in, all the details. All right, coming back to the connector builder, once you have all of these details defined, you have two sections that you have to look out for. One is pagination, the second one is the trigger. So the pagination is basically like it's kind of moving from one location to another location every time. The second one is the trigger. This is basically like the entry point to your application. So something like listeners and things like that, event sources, they can be defined up here. All right. And once you have these details defined, just click on generate any point connector, and or you can actually build the project and then publish it to your Exchange. Once you do publish it to Exchange, what happens is it will give you this connector lump, something like this one, as you can see. Anthropic and Anypoint connector model. And all you have to do is just capture this dependency schema, copy it, go back to your Mule application. I'm going to open it to test. And then basically, one second, go into pom.xml and just add that connector as a reference. Paste, save, and it will automatically download that connector that you have defined, the Anthropic, and you can see the create files, retrieve batch files, and all the details. All right. I think I was talking too much. All right, but you can actually see like how the configurations are created, and you can actually like see the regular the connector format, everything. So that being said, let me just come back up here. Let's go. The analysis for this one, simple thing. The pros, it's a faster development, just like how you have built for your REST Connect. All you have to do is just provide the API specification, and it will automatically take care of all those details, and then it's done. It generates the connector for you. Most of the time, the best part about it, most of the time, it's just like if it's just API connections that you're handling and you're doing a minimal to none transformation logics, this is the best way you can actually, not best, it's one of the good ways you can actually build this one. Once you're done with it generating and then publishing the Exchange, it's kind of like pretty intuitive process. Just like click on two buttons and you're done with it. Once the whole thing is done, the biggest thing is like the cons. This is very new, and there is very little to none documentation on link view or connector builder at this moment. And one of the key thing is it's kind of like AI driven, meaning like you are not writing anything, you're not writing this link view script or any kind of this code manually. And this is something that you have to pass it into your actual AI to actually do this, all these configurations. And here is the interesting thing: as part of our actual connector builder, and this is something like when we are to search something for creating connectors with the connector builder, most of this configurations that they mention, it's kind of mentioning to use the AI as well. So if you were to scroll down, you can see like the whole thing. Install connector builder in Cursor and how you can actually utilize it. When you're creating the base connectivity, what it actually means for each one of them. And notice for each one of them with the AI assistance, it's kind of pointing out to using Cursor. And what is the if you want to use some kind of MCP tools to retrieve the data and then attach it part of your connector, you can do that as part of this one. Okay. All right. Let me go back to the presentation once. All right. So technically, if you were to look at this connector builder, for me, it kind of looks at like connector REST Connect version of 2.0, because you actually have the ability to customize details and then basically set right set of information and things like that. All right. That being said, questions?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we have two already in the chat. So I've got one way back from Tony. He had to drop, so he can catch this on the recording, thankfully. Tony asked that, he said, could the fallback connector have been developed via this connector builder? So I feel like you may have already touched on that. I just wanted to go ahead and say that, just so Tony didn't think we were ignoring him. We sorry, I just couldn't stop you. You were on such a good roll. So go ahead and address it.
No worries. Actually, that's a good question. The fallback connector, when I was trying to build it with a connector builder, I had trouble because with the limited documentation at this moment, I was not able to like make a lot of changes at this moment. I was able to define like when I was building the HTTP connector, it was kind of pretty much fluid. Basically, like it's able to do the whole thing for me. When I asked the same exact functionality with Cursor or code, I had trouble generating the whole thing. So I'm not really sure if it's really supported at this moment. I'm kind of uncertain at the moment. It's kind of pretty much relatively new product that recently came in. So I would give the benefit of doubt for the time being.
Okay, that's fair. Whitney and Suma are asking, which methods do you recommend investing time to learn? She's thinking about Mule SDK or Connector Builder. And then Ryan says these are just opinions, but I'll let y'all talk this out. So just y'all sort this out.
Yeah, actually, I was hoping someone would ask this question, See, the thing is like there's nothing to learn for the REST Connect for the first approach. Whereas if you are on a very tight deadline and then you have to like get this connector out pretty soon, and most of this functionality is already built out in Mule XML, use XML SDK. I think you would be spending less time on this connector builder and then basically like get going very fast, But if you are kind of like, if you have enough time and then basically you are focused on performance and how the whole connector works, you need the full stability and the best performance possible. I keep pointing out to performance because Mule SDK is the only thing that can give you that power, So at that time, I would recommend you to go into the Mule SDK approach and please make sure that before even investing time on Mule SDK, check if you can actually implement this with XML SDK, because the amount of time you will spend on XML SDK is pretty minimal, And whereas for the connector builder, it's still new. That's all I can say right now. And I would say hold for the time being.
I'm glad you said that. I was wondering if you would say that. This is not so the nice thing about the Integration Quest study group is we are not a MuleSoft company forum, so we can say whatever we believe, and they don't get to tell us what to. I mean, this is one of those. The connector builder is where ACB was when it first came out. It's not ready. It will be someday, probably. But I mean, if you want to use AI tools, you can just use any AI tool with Mule SDK, and it does great. It's Java. The AI models know Java very well. So, yeah, I take that question at its face. If you want to invest time to learn something, that is going to be, I think the learning you're going to get from building the SDK. Let me some of the things I learned from the SDK is what really happens when I'm streaming a Mule application. I'm not even building a connector when I use that knowledge, or connection pooling, or a lot more about the class loader isolation that Mule's going to have around my connectors and why I can't see the JDBC driver when I'm in the database connector. So investing time in learning the SDK teaches you stuff about regular Mule. So I think not with AI, like hands-on building in a connector with the SDK teaches you fundamentals of Mule that are worth having.
I agree. Yeah. Again, if everyone were to ask me, like, if you like building something with AI versus like a manual code, I mean, manually you writing the code, I would always say write it, because you get to learn a lot more. And I think that's the best way of learning the whole thing. And here's one of the things I tell everyone: the more errors that you run into, the more experience you have. The less errors the less experience you have. Because essentially, in the future, I think with all of this AI assisted development and AI building the whole thing, I believe you will be the person with the experience driving it to resolve it. So have the knowledge before AI does. That's all I could say. Yeah.
That's a good analogy. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. Any more questions, anyone? I appreciate you sharing your mascots with us, by the way.
Oh,
I
no
told you
worries.
that the other day when we met. I just wanted to say that on the record. That I like them. They're cute.
Thank you. So I initially built out all of these things in the idea of agents. So my idea is like, hey, there is a mule, and then basically let's make it agentic. So when people look at the agentic, it kind of should represent some kind of robotic feel. So hence the robotic things kind of being there. I initially thought like maybe I'll use it for the agent demos, and then I was like, you know what, the connectors also make sense, so I'd rather use it.
That's perfect. Yep, came out perfect.
All right, thank you.
So if nobody else has any more questions, I'm going to go ahead and then just share my last little thing. I had I usually put up the question and answer thing, but you had it covered, and I like yours way better. So I'm going to just announce really quick. We've got next week, Diane is going to be coming in with NCD2 examining. Suma knew that. She was checking in. I'm glad you did her. So she's looking forward to it. Yes. So she's going to be coming in. She's going to be that, and we're looking for it. That was awesome.
Awesome.
We're going to click here and stop recording so we can hang out and chat like we always do. Thank you so much. That was an awesome presentation, and I'm looking forward to seeing this helping people. And as I see more people asking about it and sharing this on YouTube, like I always do. So great.
Sounds great. Yeah. Thank you very much, Harji, and